Right, we are back from our trip. So now we just want to finish off the history of Tanzania leading up to their independence. You enjoyed the trip, Wavan? Maganagiro? Huh?
Yeah, but see, I know kuna Diamond.
What diamonds?
Diamond Platinumz.
Diamond Platinumz. Those is only going to go from Galita. Especially ndopo wangwara manje wakuda kutanga kutaura. Musi uyo wanga wanyura mumvura uri mubhoti reAzam. Wanga wapusa. You know, just quiet. All right, now starting from olden times, right? We have what we call the Old Dubai Gorge. Not sure if I'm getting this spelling correctly. So first human settlements were made there. We are not going to get into this. We're going to deal with it separately as a separate topic another time, right? And then after that, from 700 to 900 AD, Arab traders came, right? They came to the eastern coast. Remember, Tanzania is a country that is in East Africa. And it is somewhere Panama, East Africa. So there's the coast here, and then there's the island of Zanzibar here. And so when we are coming from Zimbabwe down here, we have to go up to Fura, and then it also has Kenya on its border, that side, Uganda, and so forth. Right. So this is just to give you a geographical picture of where it stands. This is where you find Mount Kilimanjaro. So when the Arab traders came, they then encouraged or they fostered the development of Swahili culture. Right? And also the Swahili language. Swahili. This is the formation of the Swahili language is what we call lingua franca. Lingua franca simply refers to a bridging language. A bridging language is a language that is developed when two groups meet that do not speak the same language. Masangana wanatara Shona, Masangana wanatara English. But then you create your own language so that you can be able to understand each other. So there were Bantu settlers, right, that were settling. Some had traveled from as far as Western Africa, Southern Sudan. So these Bantu settlers were there. And then there are also Arab traders coming. So this is now causing the formation of what is known as the Swahili language. Kuti Swahili, Swahili. Swahili simply means a language of the coast. So these, are we together so far? Cynthia, don't sleep. You are not sleeping tiri kuZanzibar. Wangu wakamuka fani zvakatondishamisa ndikati unotombogona kuita pay attention ini kana tichitaura kudai so. Nyamba zvipi uri kunakidzwa nemapalm trees. Right. Then after that, what followed? After the Arabs, the Portuguese came and they took over the coast. This is around 1505. The Portuguese now arrive and they take over the eastern coast. So the Portuguese arrive, because you must understand why this country is so appetizing. It was so appetizing for colonials and settlers and invaders because it is by the coast. So countries that are by the coast, trade is easy because ships are coming from all over the world. So merchants like it there because it's close to the coast. Now let's move forward. Are we still together here? In 1699, the Oman Arabs came over and ousted the Portuguese. Oman Arabs came and ousted the Portuguese. Coming from Oman, then they came and took over. Now, then they have what we call a sultanate. We talked about this when we were in Stone Town. You remember that? We talked about this when we were in Stone Town. Right. So now the sultanate is ruling. But what happens in the period of the 1880s to around 1990 is that we now have German East Africa. Just like with the BSAC, British Southern Africa Company, with German East Africa, that have now invaded and they are governing Tanganyika. Remember, we said Tanzania is a combination of Tanganyika, Tanga, and Zanzibar. Anditika. So when these two came together, that's when they formed Tanzania. That's when it became Tanzania. But the mainland was known as Tanganyika. So German East Africa, these guys were running things now, Mutanganyika. But what did these guys introduce that people were not happy about? Usually, don't forget my good friend here. I'm going to be ruling like the Germans today. Right. So what these guys would do is that they imposed heavy taxes. Number one. These are the things that you write in the exam. What were the people displeased with? Then there was also land displacement. Imagine a place where your forefathers have been living and staying for many, many years. Land displacement. Then there was forced labor. Forced labor, which was brutal. Cotton fields, because they had cotton fields. Cotton because it's very hot there. Now people are not happy with all of this that was happening, right? And we said these guys were running the show from 1880 to around 1919. But try to rewind just a bit. In the month of July, in 1905, a revolution started. Revolution. Right. If you remember very well, when we were in the streets, Tanzania, when I wanted water, what did I say? I said, Maji, bring me some Maji. You remember? Right. Kuti Maji, zvinongoreva kuti water in Swahili. Hapana magic dzinoshamisa dzandaimbotaura ipapo afana. Kuti Maji means water. Right. So what happened? There was a guy. He was called Prophet Kinjikitile. Prophet Kinjikitile Ngwale. Prophet Kinjikitile Ngwale came and he told the guys, listen, we want to revolt against these guys. We want to have an uprising. But as you know, as Africans, especially dating back then, our belief in spirituality, our belief in ancestral spirits and spirit mediums was very high. So this guy, being a prophet or spirit medium, whatever you may call him, this guy, he said, I have a magical potion that I made with just water. Made with water. And this potion is going to cause the bullets, the German bullets, to turn to water. So it was known as the Maji revolution. One was also potion margarita ginger. But anyway, this revolution was brutally crushed. So it only lasted from 1905 to around 1907. It was brutally crushed because the guy who was leading there, Governor Gustav Adolf von Gutzen. Gustav Adolf von Gutzen crushed it mercilessly because he also even went destroying crops and vegetation. Then their families are starving. So this did not work. But it, however, led to some reformation in German policies in how they were leading people because they could see that the people were not happy. I don't know why it took a revolution for them to know what to meet. All right, fast forward, then we move. Then the Germans, after their defeat, in World War I, remember the Treaty of Versailles. Germans here. The Treaty of Versailles. After the defeat of the Germans, they were asked to cede all colonial areas and regions. So the British came and took over. That's around 1919. So from 1919 to 1961, there was British rule. So during this period, Maji, around 1929, there was what was known as the Tanganyika African Association that was formed. And then in 1958, a key figure rises by the name Mwalimu Julius Nyerere. Our Julius Nyerere, our Basarao Anditika. his approach, ukuthi Mwalimu, this is not his name. I hope makabata one or two things when we were there. Sorry, in 1954 actually. Mwalimu just means teacher or say. So teacher Julius Nyerere, they then transformed together with another guy named Oscar. They then transformed the TAA to Tanganyika African National Union. In short, here is the TANU. Okay? TANU. That's right. So, TANU in 1954, his approach was diplomatic, strategic, and peaceful. He said, we are not going to fight. We are not going to go to war. We are not going to pick up guns, but we are going to negotiate. The British tried to make the landscape unfair. They tried to make the playing field unfair. Saka, even when these guys were pushing to say, we want to have elections, these guys were not making it fair. But still, this guy did not resist and I don't know. We are going to run over terms. So in 1958, they went for their first legislative council elections. In 1958, this is what happened. But what Julius Nyerere had done is he had managed to unite the different ethnic groups because there are so many. Tanzania, currently the population of Tanzania is around 64 million, you can imagine. So there are many different ethnic groups, but what he managed to do was to unify these people for self-rule, to tell these people, this is what he did. So they went for the elections, but not only that, he also then approached some Asian and some European sympathizers. So he approached these guys, right? And these guys were also in favor of the cause that he was pushing for. So Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, the TANU in Achino, in 1958 political elections, but they came with an overwhelmingly resounding victory. So they won all their seats, which led to Mwalimu Julius Nyerere in 1960 becoming the chief minister. There was a position called chief minister. And then in 1961, he then became the prime minister. So he was the first prime minister of Tanganyika. And then Tanganyika then became a republic in 1962, leading him to become the first president. Then says, in 1964, Tanganyika and Zanzibar joined together to form what is known as Tanzania. So in 1964. So Mwalimu ruled from around 1962 kushka 1985. Ashingotonga, where he then voluntarily let go of power. He resigned. No, I know I am going to rest. So that is the quick history of it. I hope trip here and mahara. Let me know. I want you to tell me which country you want us to visit next. Okay.